and not scream like I used to. Apologies to all the metalheads out there. Anyway, I've got two St. Elmo's builds for you today. First one's going to be an anti-Elmo, second one's going to be straight DPS, so let's get into it. This first one is an anti-Elmo Elmo build. We start off with any specialization you want. I've begun with the firewall specialization because it gives you the regen kits. You can also go with the survivalist, which will give you team kits, and your flame grenades, which is going to be useful in a team environment. It's really up to personal preference what you want to do. Doesn't really matter in the build. Onto the primary weapon, and this is the star of the show, the St. Elmo's engine. This dropped a couple of days ago and it's a fantastic looking gun. Based on the LVOAC sort of platform, but as an assault rifle as opposed to a rifle. It has pretty much the same recoil pattern as an M4, but with that additional 20% weapon handling, which is coming in really clutch. This gun shoots like a laser beam. It's pretty hard to miss with this. When you've got this gun equipped in your hand, much like the new capacitor reskin, which is pretty cool also, it sends an electrical current down the barrel, as you can see in my character. It's a pretty cool little feature. I like it. Now, going on to the stats. As per any assault rifle, it's got assault rifle damage and health damage, but the third attribute can be randomized to be anything when it drops. It may be swap speed, it might be rate of fire. If these are things you don't like, you can actually go to the table next to Anaya in the White House and re-roll to get some damage target over cover, which is what I recommend. Onto the talent, Actum Est. Shooting an enemy with this weapon will give 1 stack. At 100 stacks, the next magazine will be filled with shock ammo. That means that when you reload, you'll get 70 rounds of shock ammo straight up. This also comes with the mods 20% crit damage, 30 rounds, 20% weapon handling, and 20% crit chance. 20% crit chance and 20% damage on an assault rifle as an additional mod is pretty cool. That doesn't come on any other assault rifle in the game, so it has a bit of a leg up in that category. Moving on to the mask, we have the Cavalier brand set. This is the new brand set that dropped along with the ELMO'S and with the electric brand set. We get 30% hazard protection from this with the knees in conjunction with the mask. We've rolled armor, crit chance, and crit damage onto this one. Moving on to the chest piece, this is the named Henry chest piece from the other new brand set, the electric brand set. Gives us plus 10 status effect, and we've rolled weapon damage onto this. As you can see, I've actually got health and status effects rolled onto this, because I've had to change out the core attribute from the skill tier, which comes with the vest, to a weapon core. Now, the division guides have not shined upon me, and I have not been able to find a piece with crit chance and crit damage over 3 days of farming. It's very unfortunate, but if you are lucky enough, I highly recommend putting that on there. We've also got a crit chance mod, and it comes with the talent Perfect Companion. When you're within 10 meters of an ally or skill, total weapon damage is increased by 20%. That's a really good buff to your damage. This is far more powerful than the backpack version of the companion talent, where you only get a 5 meter radius and 15% damage. Still good, but this is far better. Moving on to the next piece. This is the Shocker Punch exotic holster, which also dropped with these new brand sets and with the St. Elmo's. Comes with armor, explosive resistance, and hazard protection, and it's a pretty cool little holster. Going down to the talents. Defibrillator. When Shocker Punch is equipped, the stun received by the agent from the shock status effect will be reduced by 50%. Keeping in mind we also have an additional 10% hazard protection, which means you're negating 60% of your shock damage. Using a shield will give 100% to melee damage, and using this in conjunction with the St. Elmo's will give you 100% extra melee damage and will make the next melee attack that you apply give shock to a target. Using all 3 of these items will offer all of the above mentioned bonuses, and the shock from the melee attack will have a 5 meter radius. That's pretty cool, so if you run into a bunch of people, you melee one, everyone gets shocked. Obviously there has to be some negative to it. It's got a 15-second cooldown. It's not that negative really, but just to keep it in mind. Moving on to the next piece, we've got the Cavalier knee pads. This, combined with the mask, is giving us that 30% hazard protection, and if you've done the math along with me, the 60% from the holster plus this plus 10% from your watch is now giving us 100% shock resistance. We've got armor rolled onto this piece with crit damage. Moving on to our gloves, we've all seen these before, the contractor's gloves. We've got armor rolled onto these, we've also got the 8% damage to armor multiplicative damage, and we've got the crit chance rolled on as well. Our final gear piece for this one is of course a Fenris piece. We can't have an assault rifle without an assault rifle brand. So we've got that 10% assault rifle damage, and we've rolled this to all reds with the weapon damage, crit chance, crit damage, and a crit damage mod. With our talent, I've gone with Vigilance. Increases total weapon damage by 25%. Taking damage disables this buff for 4 seconds, so as long as you're at a distance and not taking bullets, combined with the perfect companion, you're going to be receiving 45% additional damage. That's a huge buff, and probably one of the biggest buffs that you could get in the game as far as your own build proccing damage. Our secondary gun is going to be the FAMAS assault rifle. We've seen this 1,000 times. This one comes with damage to armor, optimist, crit chance, crit damage, and plus 20 rounds. Now, the reason I choose Optimist over the new talent Thunderstrike is because Optimist is more consistent. With Thunderstrike, you're relying on the St. Elmo's to get you that shock damage before you actually can do any additional damage. I prefer to have my additional damage straight up, but it is personal preference. You can still use Thunderstrike on this, and it will still be really powerful. Moving on to our skills, and I've got the Defender Drone and the Explosive Seeker Mine. Now I've chosen these two skills in particular for two reasons. Reason number one, if you deploy either of these skills, they're going to hang around you and proc the companion buff, so even if you don't have an ally around, you can still have that buff, which is good for particularly solo play, but still also in a group. Reason number two is if you've got one of these skills out and it gets jammed, once the jam effect is done, you can deploy the other skill and continue your companion buff even if the first skill is on cooldown. Both skills obviously still come with their regular bonuses, with the Defender Drone providing damage mitigation and with the Explosive Seeker Mine providing those little tactical things like being able to track enemies and sending the Seeker Mine out to stop people medkitting. Onto the stats, we've got 33 PvP damage, 54 chance, 113 crit damage with 8% damage to armor. Now 33 PvP damage isn't really that high for my liking, but remembering that we can proc Companion and Vigilance, that's going to buff this up to have a little bit more damage. With our armor, we're sitting at a solid 1.5 million, and I did forget to scroll down here, but we've also got the 100% shock resistance, therefore negating anyone else who's using the St. Elmo's engine gun. Moving on to our damage and showing you what it's like with just Vigilance, we're hitting at 265 to the body and 359 to the head, which isn't great but isn't terrible. Now, proccing that with Companion, that goes up to 308 at the body and 416 at the head, which is pretty decent damage. Looking at the recoil pattern with the St. Elmo's, I did mention before that it's very much similar to the Police M4. So as you can see, this is me just holding down the button and shooting without any recoil control whatsoever. Now, I'll compare that to the Police M4 to show you what the recoil pattern's like. As you can see, there's not a lot of difference in the recoil pattern. It's virtually the same. So for those who usually use a Police M4, using the St. Elmo's engine's not going to be much different to that. If anything, it's actually a little bit better because it has, again, that 20% weapon handling in the mods. So it turns out to be a pretty decent gun. Moving on to our second St. Elmo's build. This one, we've given up our shock resistance so we can get a lot more DPS going on in this. We're sitting at a 1.4 and we're going to have a lot of firepower coming out of this build, so we're going to be sitting back and supporting our team with this. Keeping with the theme of support, we've gone with the Survivalist specialization. We've done this because it gives you the team medkits which you can proc for your teammates as they're running in and doing their fighting. We've also got the flame grenades which you can throw out to block hallways, damage enemies, etc, etc. Moving on to our main gun, we've already covered it, the St. Elmo's. This one's doing 106k damage, so you can already see that we've gained about 20k on the damage from the previous build. With our mask, we've got the Fenris mask for the assault rifle damage and the 20% reload speed. We've rolled armor onto this and we've got crit chance, crit damage with a crit damage mod. Again, we're going with the Henry vest. Obviously, again with the health and status, we want this to be crits, but otherwise it's pretty much the same vest. We've got the crit damage mod on this one, and we've also got the Companion with the increased 20% damage. With our holster, we've elected to go with the Walker and Harris for that 5% weapon damage and the 5% damage to armor multiplicative damage. We've rolled all reds onto this with crit chance and crit damage. With our knee pads, we've gone with the Heartbreaker gear set for that 15% assault rifle damage. Obviously the Ninja Bike backpack is giving us that second unlock. We've rolled weapon damage onto this with crit damage as well. We've got the contractor's gloves with armor rolled on it and crit chance with that additional 8% damage to armor, as we already know about. And with our last piece, obviously bringing it all together, we've got the Ninja Bike backpack. We've got a crit chance mod on that, and with our secondary gun, we've got the FAMAS again. We've pretty much got the exact same skills on this one for the same reasons, proccing companion, and etc, etc. Going on to our damage, now we're sitting at a pretty nice 42 PvP damage. We've got 54 chance and 125 crit damage with 13% armor damage on this one. Going down to our armor, we're only sitting at a 1.35, so it's not a true 1.4, but with a little bit of expertising on the gear, this will definitely get up to 1.4. Just keep that low armor in mind when you're deciding on whether or not you're going to push on people. With our damage on this build, we're going to be doing a lot more damage. So without any procs, we're doing 296 to the body and we're doing 395 to the head. Once we activate our companion buff, as you can see, that bumps up to being 355 to the body and 474 to the head. So it's pretty decent damage going on this build. I'll leave you with some PvP clips and you can see just how much this build smacks.
Just quit, tucking all your slack and you ain't done shit. Where's the cap? No strap, sending all your threats, all I do is laugh. Everybody look at me like I'm a god, now you another blank face in my fan crowd. Never thought for a second you could do this. Take a seat, bitch, all I do is prove this. Pretender, talk a sheep, but when I cast, gotta lay it down by a preacher. Unwinded, your mind is playing up. If you think I'm gone, you're blinded. Keep talking like you beef. You a fucking vegan, are you ready for the meat? When you're trying to convince you ain't a bitch, you a damn jester, I'm a fucking prince.
That you close your eyes, I'm a fucking thorn in your side. Gotta make you sorry you try, better make that pussy goodbye. I smell that blood between your legs, cause you a bitch and I'm just red. Bring that umbrella, cause I bring that land.
Better come hard, cause you're marked for death.
As usual, if you like the builds and you like the video, leave a comment and like and subscribe to the channel.